China Watch Radio is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitola Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum!
Dong Xiaoping, 我们在晃晃来来的，站起来，站起来。Hello, everybody. This is China Watch Radio. And that's what we do. We watch China and try to figure out what China's doing and how it might have an impact on us. And there's always so much going on in China. Why? Because there are 1.4 billion people over there doing things and getting by in life and raising hell and locked in their own apartments, too. So life is very, very exciting over there these days. And it's made such because there's a big election coming up in November. And so that's some of the stories that we're going to be looking at today. One of the big questions we have today is, why is China not making any financial sense? I mean, it's crazy. So we're going to talk about that and see if we can make some sense of China's nonsense. But we have a whole bunch of stories, and we have a whole bunch of people in the studio and outside the studio with us today. We have Billy Graff, of course, who's running the boards and offering up his opinions. We have Amy Howe. We have John T. Collier, who's out there in the woods someplace. Hello, John T. Are you there?
I'm here. It's great to be with you all.
Good. We have David Welch with us again. He'd have to turn on his microphone, Billy. There you go.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And who's there running the show but Susan Simon?
Wait, you didn't put the pause in.
Well, go ahead.
Susan.
Pause.
Simon.
There. Gotcha. So there we are. So let's kick it off.
Let me just say that we had our show fairly well planned out. We had a lot of stuff.
And you messed it all up,
Well,
didn't you?
I ran across some information. Rosie sort of clued me into some stuff that appeared on the Drudge Report this morning that kind of puts a monkey wrench in some of the stuff we talked about, only because it's very new information.
John T., do you think we should let Billy throw a monkey wrench into the program?
As long as it's somewhat performative in terms of...
it's very performative, actually. We were going to talk about... We were going to talk about the current leader of China and his position as related to the election, which is coming up in November. Mm-hmm. Well, there are rumors circulating around China that he may be getting ready to step down.
Mm-hmm. There's lots of rumors going around.
Well, see, that's
China
the thing.
right
in
now.
China, there's lots of rumors that are put out, but I thought I would just. The
other rumor that's going around is that he has a brain aneurysm.
Well,
okay.
Wow,
I thought that was Putin. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
So, and the speculation is that his opposition is putting out these rumors, so to weaken his position for his run for the emperorship of China.
Well,
Amy, what do you think? Yeah.
What do you think, Amy?
I think that's probably the real purpose is make sure you can be an emperor for life. So that's emperor's difference from what
a little like Mao was.
Yeah, Mao's emperor.
Mao was in charge until he wasn't.
They all until they die, like the Stalin.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
What do you think, David?
Well, I'm just thinking back to the knife man prophecies from the other week.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, on that note, folks, you've obviously tuned into a program that talks a lot about China. That's why we call it China Watch Radio. And we urge you, before we start in on our discussion today, we urge you to go to our website. Jonty has put in a great deal of work compiling all the stories we'll be talking about, and that is at ChinaWatchRadio.com. And we invite you to read the articles in the Know Before the Show section. and certainly we'll bring you up to date on what's going on with that. Now, let's start.
Batter up, Billy.
All right. So, like I said, I was going to start out early here and talk about what's coming up in the election, November.
That was my job, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, it is. But the thing is, we're going nuts about certain things that China's done. And one of the things we've been talking about in this show for a while now is that China's moving out. They're branching out in the world in various locations, particularly in our realm that we've been talking about on the show for a while, about the Solomon Islands and the South Pacific. And a couple of things have happened recently. There has been a lot of analysis, and it turns out Jonty was right. At least if you believe the reports I've recently looked at from Australia and from New Zealand and from the BBC. Jonty pointed out that we may have been lax or lapsing in our coverage of the South Pacific, the United States, and Australia. Australia has.
We were taking somebody for granted.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it, I guess. Australia was sort of acting as the area policeman when disputes were taking place in the Solomon Islands, in Tahiti, in Fiji, in places like that. Well, apparently, there was some unrest in the Solomon Islands recently, in the last year or so, and Australia didn't do a particularly good job of stepping in as the local international policeman to quell the riots which were happening and whatnot. This is apparently why the Solomon Islands turned to China. Now, the United States normally would have stepped in and helped out in trying to police the riots, but we didn't do that either. So when the Solomon Islands said, can you come and help us, China? We'll make an agreement with you if you kind of show up and be our police force, because we don't have an adequate police force to stop big riots. China went, well, sure, we'll do that. And, of course, Australia got mad, and the United States got mad, and New Zealand got a little upset. Mm-hmm. And so what's happened now is China has kind of said, look, this is a two-faced kind of thing that the United States... Look, when the United States said to Russia, look, Ukraine is... there's, we have a dispute with them. Well, wait a minute. Ukraine's a sovereign nation. You can't just go in there and do anything like that. But the Solomon Islands are a sovereign nation as well. And for us to say to the Solomon Islands, they can't make an agreement with China. Jonty made this point a couple of weeks ago on this program, and I sort of disagreed with him about it. And I've come around to the point where maybe the idea of the Solomon Islands being able to decide who they want to make an agreement with is up to the Solomon Islands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. Except that, the big exception is, it's really upsets the apple cart for the rest of the nations in the South Pacific around the Solomon Islands.
Well, I'd like to offer a divergent opinion with respect to that.
Like I did last week.
Mm-hmm. So, some time ago, the Chinese ambassador went to the president of Fiji and said, President of Fiji, I'll give you $1 million in Yankee greenbacks if you agree to turn your support away from Taiwan to the People's Republic of China. Give you $1 million cash.
And what did he say?
No.
Yeah. Okay.
But what the president of the Solomon Islands said, I'll bet. Yes, that's what I bet they said.
Do we know for sure, though?
Of course not.
No.
How would we?
Yeah, exactly. Because the head of the Solomon Islands that made the agreement with China isn't going to come out and say, of course not.
Yeah.
Now, what you just said is an interesting thing. Another report on Drudge, which I found at the same time I was looking, is apparently China has surrounded Taiwan for a massive invasion rehearsal drill. They actually aren't. It's a drill. They're practicing on how to do it. Mm-hmm. But that's a little scary, don't you think? If you're a proponent of backing China over the CCP.
Well, China's certainly been probing around, thinking full circle around the island. They've been probing from different, Cartesian coordinate, right? It's interesting now that to this article that they're actually looking at this as an encirclement.
It's a full
partial exercise
surrounding of the ROP.
Interesting. There's 3 carrier groups from 3 different nations over there right now from the West who are also over there. So hot water, the South China Sea.
Yeah. And just to throw in the final thing in this mix that I kind of wanted to bring up is North Korea. Mm-hmm. Now, North Korea has apparently, in the last couple of days, last week, dropped a couple of more missiles out there around the vicinity of Japan. Which is, just adding to the mix of the whole thing. If you follow the politics in that area, the North Korea is sort of backed by China,
and they don't like to be ignored. So it's like, hey guys, remember we're still here. I understand.
Yeah, we're still here. Our people are still
just
starving.
like the president of the Solomon Islands. You guys are ignoring me, and China's flirting with me. So
yeah.
One of the things that happened in the Solomon Islands, to the best of my understanding, is that when those riots broke out, the Australians did in fact defend their own embassy, protect their own embassy, and the Chinese embassy didn't have any protection. That was one of the things that sort of upset the Chinese, and they said, "Look, we need to come up with a better deal here." I mean, don't get me wrong; I would much prefer seeing the Solomon Islands and/or all of the South Pacific siding more with the West, especially vis-a-vis the balance of power and Taiwan. But it really does sort of beg the question. It's going back to that same dynamic that we had during the Cold War, where all of these third world nations were sort of vying for what they could sort of get. What will I get if I side with the Soviets or if I side with the West? And that actually does create a sort of bargaining situation where places where maybe once they were just completely ignored by everyone, now they can maybe get a little bit of
a bidding war,
international concessions and things of that like, which I don't think is the worst thing in the world for places where the per capita income is
fairly low,
$3,000 a year or something like that.
The other thing too is we have such a ethnocentric point of view in the West. We think our point of view is the right point of view, but in reality,
it is.
Well, in reality, though, we should not look down on other places that want to feather their own nest. You know what I mean? I mean, the Solomon Islands, it seems to me, is very strategic, and have come to realize now they're very strategic.
That's right. No, they are very strategic, and I want to circle back to Taiwan for a second with this Chinese exercises that are going on. The first step in potentially trying to control an island nation is to place an embargo around it. Now, an embargo is an act of war, but certainly if you had your forces around that, you could elevate the threat status so that the insurance becomes unobtainable on the cargo ships and aircraft, right? So you can wind up with a soft power exercise that actually winds up restricting or harming the economic viability of the island.
Who's the best at the soft power exercising?
Chinese are brilliant. Exactly.
Yeah.
I think the U.S. is pretty good at that too.
Regarding the exercise in the area, I think last week you guys talked about the Jingmen Mazu, those 2 little islands very close. Mm-hmm. That was always same place since 1949. So the mainland China always say that they wanted to get back, and that's part of that. Especially when they have some movement inside China, so that's a very good excuse, and also get people get together, see who's our enemy, so what. Yeah. Just shift the attentions to.
I'm also wondering as well to your point on that is At what point are they starting to kind of probe and test the Biden administration maybe a bit further? One of the things I've always been proud of this country
That's what the Solomons is.
Yeah, I believe that's true. I believe Michael's right on that. I think the Solomons are the test site.
Yeah. You know, this country's always supported freedom of navigation in international waters, and I thought that's always one of the best uses of our Navy for a world benefit and a world good. And at some point, right, especially if we're adding these 3 carrier battle groups, Michael, as you're saying, out to that region, it sounds like that we're going to continue to enforce this rite of passage. And I'm just wondering, as China starts to press closer in on Taiwan, are they also, in this particular case, beyond the Solomons, also testing our resolve in their own backyard?
Well, this is
Taiwan?
where the Australian Navy comes into play, too. The Australian Navy, it's not a huge Navy, but
it's very effective.
They're very effective.
And they have good submarines.
Yes.
And from my time...
sorry, go ahead, David.
John, you're up.
Yeah. Oh, well, I was just going to say I read a very interesting thing about modern torpedoes the other day.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
So you think about the World War II torpedoes where the periscope goes up and they're aiming. They see the little ship in the crosshairs, and they release the torpedoes, and they have to the ships immediately try to move away to try to escape from the torpedo trajectory, but oh no, it's too late, and all that kind of stuff. Contemporary torpedoes, a heavy torpedo today has a range. It can have a range up to something in the order of 100 kilometers. The contemporary torpedo is something that you'll drop out of a torpedo tube, and then the submarine will actually get some distance away from it before it activates to try to make it difficult to detect. And it'll then, it can actually home in on the wake of a ship. But the submarine will actually have a little teeny, super thin cable that can run out for a great distance, still attached to the torpedo. So the submarine will continue to drive this torpedo around for quite some time. They travel at about 50 knots, which is, give or take about twice what any normal ship's going to be able to do. And if you just imagine the scenario where you've got, just a handful, let's just say 5 or 10 nuclear attack submarines somewhere in the realm of Taiwan, and each of them can fire, let's say, 20 missiles or torpedoes with a 100-kilometer range. An attack submarine, just even one would be a major deterrent. So bear that in mind when we look at things like Australia making an agreement with the United States to start building nuclear-powered submarines, the highest, the best, the most advanced submarines in the world.
You'll notice how this conversation has gone straight to nuclear war.
Yeah.
How did we get there so quickly?
And Michael, too, from your time in the Navy, the United States has a great agreement with Australia and New Zealand in terms of us backfilling, right? So oftentimes, what I've seen in the regions, Australia is taking maybe the point of the tip of the spear on some of the tactical maneuvers. I'm thinking like around Papua New Guinea when they quelled the civil war there, and some of the other activities. And then the U.S. would come in and kind of help backfill, the strategic patrol of their waters to give them the force multiplication.
Well, David, make no mistake about the number of submarines in the area that are nuclear powered and running from the United States government.
That's right.
This calls to the point, the strategic significance of the Solomon Islands.
Yes.
It's easy to forget these little tiny islands mean anything when it gets right down to the strategic chess playing of the Pacific. But the Solomon Islands were where Japan was establishing a base.
Yes.
To control the sea lanes to Australia.
That is correct. And they're still there. They're just as strategically important now as they were to the Japanese way back when.
During World War II, it's where the United States said we have to make a stand here, even though we really don't know what the hell we're doing and we don't have enough equipment to do it with. We're going to do it anyway. And that was the fight for Guadalcanal.
That's right. And Guadalcanal was the War of Australia.
Yes. Yeah. And the Battle of the Coral Sea and so on. Yeah, absolutely.
But bear in mind, we're talking about an agreement to use Chinese policemen. It's not a military agreement at this point in time. I'm not saying it couldn't lead to one. This isn't the building of a Chinese military base there.
Not yet.
it's using Chinese police to help out, or I guess. South Africa actually has a situation where Chinese policemen are working in certain areas. Also, we've discussed that previously.
To use Michael Olson's analogy, this looks like the camel's nose under the edge of the tent,
doesn't it? Yeah.
Now, so once the Chinese police are policing your country, how in the heck are you going to get them out? It's like, how do you get the camel out of the tent?
Well, think of the espionage.
Camel's in the tent.
Well, think of the espionage network you build if you're embedded in somebody's police force.
There you go. So who's up next? I think it's Jonty.
I'll be happy to be up next. I found an interesting little tweet thread by Lori Milivirta, if I said that correctly, of the Center for Research on Energy and Clean Air, out of where the EU, Finland or something. They translated a document published, I assume, by some CCP officials. And they're talking, I think the title of the document is Going Crazy on New Coal Power. They're talking about how there's a massive push to build new coal and gas-fired electricity generation plants, something in the range of, I think they're saying 31 coal plants. Oh, I mean, they're rapidly accelerating what was otherwise a very rapid building of more coal-fired electricity generation places. 43 gigawatts of capacity.
Wow!
By 2005.
Did you say 43 gigawatts?
Yeah,
that's a lot of power.
I think China's at about 1,200 gigawatts total, so it is a lot of power. That's just to put it in context. But
enough to power KSCO radio?
I imagine you would probably be able to broadcast to people in other galaxies if you were running 43 gigawatts over those towers. But your hair would be permanently straight up when you left the station as well. The other thing I found interesting in that article was the mention that... I'll just read this here. It says, the official chant for China's local officials this year is Project is King, meaning get as much construction underway as fast as you can. Coal power plants are just one sector among many. On the last, I believe, 2 shows, we talked about how there's this idea that, we're having some issues with the consumer market. We're having COVID shutdowns and problems with our ports, but we're still going to have dramatic GDP growth in order to show the West that our economic model is superior. So this is that whole classic scenario where there's no price discovery. Another thing about these 43 gigawatts of capacity is they're calling it peak shaving. Peak shaving is a very strange phrase. I think that's a poor translation is what it is. But they're expected to run at low utilization. So they don't actually have a need for this increased power generation. They're just building it because they need to grow the GDP.
I think that all relates to the Paris Climate Accords, because in the Paris Climate Accords, I think the essential core agreement was that the developed countries like the United States would get rid of all of their wood-burning fireplaces and gasoline-powered cars. And
coal-fired power plants.
Everything. Whereas the developing countries could continue to develop their power facilities, their greenhouse gas facilities.
So do we call China a developing country?
That's exactly right. Yes.
Really?
And so for the next 150,000 years, probably not that long, but for a long time, China can develop as many coal-burning power plants as it wants. And so it's building those coal-burning power plants out, even though it doesn't need them, because that's the agreement that we made.
In the WTO, they're still classified as an emerging market.
Yeah.
Billy,
can I just ask it's a very rhetorical question, but this is a country that makes every iPhone on the planet Earth and now builds Teslas. They're a developing country, really?
Yes.
Yeah, Billy, China actually gets somewhere in the range of about $3 billion in low-interest loans from the World Bank every year as a developing nation to help them develop.
Wow, what a racket.
I think they're developed. I think
Right.
this is like a really bad Polaroid camera. I think they're developed.
John T, you brought up a very interesting point about the need to build infrastructure. China is running amok, building roads and highways and everything, often to places that aren't needed at all, just to show the 5.5% increase in GDP. Now, I think about that, and I think, well, it's not a bad way of spending money that you don't have. You could borrow it and build things that you may need in the future. Now, I look at what we're doing with the same principle of dumping money into the public coffers. And here in Santa Cruz, for example, the city of Santa Cruz has $14 million to help homeless people. They're not going to build any infrastructure with that money. They're hiring bureaucrats with that money. Now, I'm thinking China's building things, and we're not.
Right. Well, I'm thinking about when you guys talked about this just a moment ago, the first thing that popped into my head was that bridge, that famous bridge they built that goes absolutely, they built the bridge over the river, but there's no road on the other side.
Right.
The bridge is pointless.
Well, it is now.
They are, the economy developing supposed to be planned before whatever, but now actually, in the fact, I've been in China so many times. Lots of freeway, highway they build, and nobody drive there. It's empty. Why? There's no traffic. Number one, they wanted to get money. Anywhere you have an infrastructure, the local government will get rich. The officer, they get lots of money because lots of contract bidders, so they get all those money to their own pocket. And is it useful or not useful, or what purpose? They don't even think about that.
The same thing could be said for the ghost cities, too.
Yeah, lots of ghost city, but then no farming lands. Why? Because they can make some money. I mean, officers, individual, those people, government, they got money.
John T., what?
Oh, I was just going to say, I sometimes wonder to the extent to which we have graphed in our own system some section of road that doesn't need to be repaved, getting repaved over and over again, things like that. I'm sure we have an aspect of that, although I think the degree is an order of magnitude different.
But the corruption too. Our government talking about California.
There's corruption worldwide.
Just like San Francisco, the one from one bus station, Power Street to Chinatown. It's 9 years now. Still didn't finish. Why? So it's unbelievable corruption. There's only one report talking about. They say that the reason never finished because the truck was smaller than the car. How could that happen? Smaller than train.
Well,
it's all standard. It's track standard.
You
talk about the tracks were smaller than the
train. Yeah.
They built the wrong size track, is what you said.
Yeah, that's what I mean. How could that happen? It's unbelievable.
Look. That
was 2 years ago.
How could they build the Hubble Space Telescope and get the measurement wrong so that when they launched the thing into space, it was blind? It's a telescope.
But it did work.
Because half of it was built in the UK where it's a metric system, and half was built in the United States where it's our system, and when they mated it up and put it in space, it didn't work.
They've had to put a contact lens on it.
Yeah, they had to actually go up and get and have it reworked in space so it would take the right pictures.
Michael also just talked about the homeless project in China. Not China, San Francisco too. One of my friends worked for the in charge of the finance. They asked her back to work. She already retired. She told me, she said that you can't believe it's per person, 1 million per person for San Francisco homeless people.
Yeah.
So, and then where's the money
around
go?
the world?
Where's the
China's
money?
no
They
exception.
build 110 for 1 million. The city hall. and those officers, and they contract with some people, and that's the corruption going on. All the money go to.
And you're saying the same thing happens in China, just like that.
But
now they learn from China, I guess.
But they're building things. They may not need them right now, but they're building things.
Well, it's like the bullet
no
train that
use.
goes to Manchuria. There's not much out there at the other end of the station, but the train does go out there really fast.
But at least they're building something. Okay. And
Right.
that's my point.
You have a tangible asset in the end.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. I believe, Olson, you're going to let us know a little bit about, speaking of corruption, Biden's playing with this idea about reversing the tariffs on China. But do we want to go for a break first?
Well,
I think that's a very good idea. We'll take our break now, and
What
then
happened to you, Billy? Goodness sakes.
I got so involved in the.
Me too. It's such a good conversation.
Such a good conversation there. Well, listen, John T., thank you for helping me keep on track. I appreciate that. We'll be right back on China Watch Radio. Satisfy your hunger right now with the delicious ramen and sushi you'll find waiting for you at Kaito. Easy in and out location in the Capitola Mall food court. Special orders welcome. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
This is Koji. I'm looking forward to seeing you at my restaurant, Kaito.
Historically high gas prices, rising crime, unsecure borders, and this insane inflation. Are you done yet with the Biden progressive policies? Jimmy Panetta supports them all. Let's break up the Panetta-Pelosi team. Hello, I'm Dalila, and I'm running for Congress to help stop these progressive policies that are hurting all of us and our families. When you vote for me, you're voting for a fighter in Congress. So on June 7th, vote Dalila, D-A-L-I-L-A, for Congress.com. I'm Dalila Epperson, and I approve this message.
Here's the host of Building Matters, David Parks, with an exciting announcement.
I'm excited to inform you that Granite Rock Company, who has headquarters in Watsonville, has signed on to be our show's first sponsor for Building Matters. Granite Rock has been building the foundation of this community for over 120 years, and I'm proud of my association with them for nearly a third of that time. Granite Rock is both a building materials supplier as well as a concrete delivery company with locations in Santa Cruz and Watsonville, Salinas, Seaside, and Redwood City. Granite Rock also has a construction and engineering division that successfully performs roadway improvements throughout our region. With my past experience as construction manager for the County of Santa Clara for nearly 10 years, I can personally attest to the high level of expertise and professionalism that they bring to each and every project. So welcome Granite Rock to Building Matters on KSEO Radio 1080.
Spring is in the air, and that means it's time for...
What, allergies? Easter bunnies?
No, Charlie, it's time for electrical safety.
Of course. Hello, Charlie Friedman here with Chris Jensen from JM Electric. Spring is the season for safety.
That's right, Charlie. Every year, thousands are injured or killed by electricity around the home. But thankfully, we now have incredible technologies today, like arc fault circuit interrupters and tamper-resistant receptacles that can protect you from those electrical fires and shocks. JM Electric is happy to help folks out with a free home assessment to see if any of these devices or our current safe testing services are a good fit for their home.
Don't get a free tap dancing lesson from your electrical circuitry. Give my friends at JM Electric a call. They'll come to your home, have an expert look at your electrical systems, and tell you what can be done to make your home safe, just like they did for my home. And their visit won't cost you a dime. Give JM Electric a call at 422-7819 or visit jmelectric.com or on Facebook and tell them Charlie sent you.
At Batteries Plus, we do more than fix phones and tablets. We help our neighbors power their lives. Visit Batteries Plus in-store, curbside, and online to save on boat, RV, and motorcycle batteries. For offer details and limitations, visit batteriesplus.com.
And you're back on China Watch. Actually, we're back on China Watch Radio. We're back. We're all back.
So before we went to the break, John T. brought up a piece in the news about the possibility of President Joe Biden removing the tariffs that Donald Trump put on Chinese goods and services and whatnot. And the reason President Biden wants to do that, he says, is because it will help with inflation. Now, I just like to put on the table that I don't think so. I don't think that's the reason he wants to get rid of the tariff.
If you look at the core of inflation, if you look at the what makes up the number, it's not consumer goods. It's food and fuel and housing and other factors that are actually driving the price. It's not trinkets and toasters and things that we're getting from overseas.
Right. So the real reason... go ahead, John T.
Sorry, I was going to say, I think what you would find is in terms of the way that we calculate CPI, those useless, well, those trinkets, they're not always useless, but those not quite so necessary aspects are overweighted. So you might actually see that it decreases the inflation number, the way that it's misleadingly calculated, but in terms of what really matters to people, as you say, David, it's not going to make a bit of difference.
Well,
Still $100 to fill my gas tank.
Yeah, and here's what's even worse than
Where
that.
did you get gas at that price, man?
$100.
I saw $5.83 today.
Well, you know, here's the real part that's even worse than you and I filling our gas tanks up. What about the guys who have to haul the food to New York from California? You know, we grow everything out here, and they ship it all to New York.
Yeah.
It's over almost $7 a gallon for diesel.
Well, Billy, I just saw on one of the business channels this morning, the average truck is paying $2,000 to fill its diesel tank.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is the real reason that Joe Biden wants to get rid of the tariffs that Donald Trump put on China? I think the real reason is that Joe Biden is owned by China.
There you go.
That's right.
That's just my opinion.
First president.
See, I'm kind of looking at. I'm looking
I say
at.
that before. I say this first president made in China.
Very good.
You know, I understand that point of view, but I look at the pressure he has, you know, to look good for his constituents, and you go, wow, man, maybe this isn't such a good idea to lift the tariffs.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of his constituents that make stuff in China and could make a lot more money if they didn't have to pay those tariffs. So who is Joe Biden's constituents these days?
Well, you know that's a good question. I mean, it's a valid question.
I think his principal constituent is Xi Jinping. But that's just my opinion.
Well, you know, I've said this in the past. I think every member of Congress's most important constituent is themselves.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but that's the way I feel about it.
Just a punchline on this. The uplift in shipping costs currently because of the lockdowns in Beijing and the backup of containers is vastly superseded what the tariffs were in terms of an uplift in consumer prices.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I am very grateful to have a very good panel with me today because I'm going to step in it.
What else is new?
What else is new?
You troublemaker.
And I hope that you'll pull me out. My problem is that I look at China over the past year, maybe year and a half, and see that it just doesn't seem to be making any financial sense at all.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, you're right. But I tell you why.
Oh, good.
No, you finish your question.
Okay.
Somebody can explain it, which is good.
Okay, so good. And that's exactly where we want to go today. Why is China not making any financial sense, you know, on these financial issues? Let's review some of the issues. First of all, why did China cancel its real estate industry? I mean, canceled it. This is an industry that represented 70% of the personal wealth of China. 70%. This is an industry that represented 30% of China's gross national product. And Xi Jinping and the guys, maybe some gals, pulled the rug out from underneath that industry by saying, in essence, that you could no longer do real estate with borrowed money unless you met these very stringent conditions. As a consequence...
Can I clarify? Let me just ask you this question. You said can't do it with borrowed money.
Yeah.
If you had money, you could still do it, right?
Yeah.
No. They have the policy. The details is if the new development was approved by the state, and then you can borrow money to buy. If the existing one you already have, you want to resell, and then the buyer cannot borrow any money.
No, but if you had money to buy it, then you could still run that transaction, right? That's correct.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify
limited,
that.
Limited, restricted.
No new borrowing.
Unless you met these very stringent conditions that nobody could meet. As a consequence of that, the world's biggest real estate company, Evergrande, which is $306 billion in debt, went belly up.
They crashed and burned.
As has a lot of China's principal developers and its banks. So when you pull the rug out from that industry, you're pulling your rug out from your financial food chain.
Oh, yeah.
Almost the banks, the developers, everything.
So you're asking the question.
Foreign bondholders.
Yeah, there you go.
Us.
Yes.
There you go.
BlackRock.
Yeah, very simple answer. Xi Jinping want to be Mao.
Just a minute.
So
quit
think
stealing
about
my thunder. You.
Okay, I don't want to go. Okay. Okay, finish.
All right.
As usual, Amy's standing on the finish line.
All right. But yes, teasing where we're going here. So why did China pull the rug out from its financial service? Doesn't make any sense.
It really doesn't.
Why did China cancel its entrepreneurs?
Also doesn't make any sense.
Why did they haul Jack Ma in? Why did they cancel the Ant Group's initial public offering? Why are they chasing essentially all of these American industries out of?
They're chasing Disney out of China.
Yeah. So why did China cancel its business people? Doesn't make any sense. Here's the big one. Why did China lock down its country with zero COVID?
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense. Ladies and gentlemen, listen. There are 26 million people in Shanghai. 26 million.
That's half the population of the entire state of California.
And there are 1,000 people with COVID. That is one person for every 26,000 people.
1 in 26,000.
Yeah.
I mean, this is
test positive.
And for that, they are locking everybody into their own apartments. 6 weeks now.
And starving them.
Can you, ladies and gentlemen, can you imagine living in your closet for 6 weeks?
Well, here's the thing. We personally, here at this radio station, one of our employees' relatives is in fact locked down in China with her family.
Yeah. So none of this makes any sense. None. It just does not make any sense. So what is going on? As Amy so kindly pointed out, this is not about financial sense at all.
Or about controlling COVID.
Or about controlling COVID, or about punishing Jack Ma. It's all about politics.
Control.
That's the assertion here. Now, how does politics work in China? So here in the United States, we, of course, have Democrats and Republicans. And we can see them because they're everywhere and they're yelling at each other and we listen to them and go, yeah. But in China, what do we see when we see a video of the Congress when they all meet together? They all do this. Right? Go, join me. Exactly. Right?
And they all sit up straight, and they all look very serious.
And there is no contention, and there is no, it's just, how does that work? Because we're such a mess. But in fact, China is not a monolithic party. No. The government is run by the Chinese Communist Party, and within that Chinese Communist Party, there are factions.
And there's backbiting quietly.
Just like there is here in the United States. So going back to Mao, what do these factions look like? How does this factional politics work? Mao, of course, invented the whole factional politics, said. Now, this is what he said at the opening of the Cultural Revolution at the 11th Party Congress. No party outside the party reflects an imperial ideology. No faction within the party is an incredibly bizarre notion. Of course there's politics. How do you win politics in China? Well, from the beginning of the CCP in 1949 to 1976, Mao instituted these Soviet-era pogroms in which he would clean the decks, essentially kill people. How many people?
Disappear people, anyway.
Somewhere in the neighborhood during Mao's tenure, somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 100 million people were killed as he got rid of the opposition. So that's what bear that in mind as we look at what's going on in China right now and trying to make sense of this nonsense. It just doesn't make any sense. So when Xi Jinping came in, he took over from Hu Jintao, and so there was three factions running China in the politics. One was the Jiang Zemin faction and his Shanghai political people and his financial people. They were the money guys. These were the business people. This is the power elite of the coasts. This would be like the West Coasters here in the United States, right? The Zuckerbergs and whatnot, and their big bucks. This is the Jiang Zemin factory. And then there was the Hu Jintao faction, which was made up of kind of the country people, the middle of the heartland people. And then Xi Jinping came into power and established his own faction. And his own faction was made up largely of Chinese Communist Party bureaucrats. So these are the three factions that are contending. Now, the Hu Jintao faction, it kind of faded away because it didn't have any substantial power base. But the Jiang Zemin faction was very powerful because they have the money.
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 Money talks.
Money talk. What does Billy always says?
Follow the money.
Follow the money. So, what do we know about the chairman, the emperor of China, right? We know that Xi Jinping is going to be very, very paranoid because everybody is trying to get the power. So how can Xi Jinping get rid of the Jiang Zemin faction?
Wow. Yeah.
You get rid of the Jiang Zemin faction by crashing the economy.
Yep.
And if you can get rid of the economy, you can get rid of the Jiang Zemin faction.
The opposition.
So there will be nobody to contend with you. Now, a lot of people are going to get hurt because there's no economy. What are people going to eat? Does that matter to Mao Zedong or to Xi Jinping?
Nope.
Doesn't.
No.
Life is cheap.
No.
And to pile on the whole idea that this is all politically based, Bill Gertz, who reports for the Washington Times, has come up with a story about rumors which are circulating around China right now. Apparently he has some reliable sources in various provinces in China that say that rumors are circulating in China and overseas among Chinese social media officials in other countries that Chinese President Xi Jinping, under fire for draconian COVID-19 lockdowns in Shanghai and elsewhere, will step down from power.
Yeah, we've been through that. There's rumors. Let me finish my Mao's thought. To go along with Amy's thought here. With respect to crashing the economy, it seemed completely out of mind. But here's what Mao said. People say that poverty is bad, but in fact, poverty is good. the poorer people are, the more revolutionary they are. It is dreadful to imagine a time when everybody will be rich. From a surplus of calories, people will have 2 heads and 4 legs. So, my thought is that the only way that what we see happening in China makes sense is that if Xi Jinping is deliberately trying to crash the economy to get rid of his political opposition.
Yeah. Basically, we were talking about last year, we want America with China decouple. I think now they wanted to decouple. They wanted to close the door. Yeah, but one point missing, my opinion, is, before China, I was living in China for 30 years, right? So I was born, so poverty, everything, that's fine. But China opened for 30 years.
Yeah.
And the people
Deng Xiaoping
taste it.
Got a taste of success.
You got to taste it. Because, for instance, in my village, I went to a village, they never tasted chocolate. They don't know what is a chocolate, I think I brought 1 chocolate down there. So since then, they just want a chocolate. They don't want any other things. Those brown sugar, they don't want it because it tastes better.
Chocolate.
Yeah, so Xi Jinping missed that when he think back to the mall, how he can control, I can control that too. Not people in China now. They taste
they've got a taste.
Taste it, the rich, some to make money, they open it for 30 years.
And that's why he has them locked into their apartment.
That's right.
In Shanghai.
Yeah, this time is a big taste. He think that if he can do that to Shanghai, so he can control the whole country.
Yeah.
Shanghai would be the difficult to control, most difficult.
I'd like to just maybe link what Billy had said with what you guys were talking about, which is around these rumors that have come out to Western journalists. And it seems like everybody has to have an outlet, right? And they have to have a way to get their message out in the lockdown communication infrastructure of China. And a way of doing that is to share your point of view with an outside journalist from the West, because it'll get amplified and published, and it'll actually leak back into China. So I'm wondering how much of that is going on in terms of these two factions fighting with each other using some of the international communication.
Yeah, absolutely. Most of the rumors are started outside of China and then leaked back into China. Right, exactly. Because if you start something in China, you might end up as a body part donor.
Well, particularly if they can trace it back to you, for sure.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
This whole thing about control and who's in, keep in mind that the main opposition leader to Xi Jinping is in his 90s. He's quite old.
His faction is not in his 90s, though.
No. His son,
but they're all
he's very old. He's
school.
almost very fresh. You see, I don't think he's. Jiang Zemin. I'm talking about that.
He's 95, I believe.
Gang.
Yeah, what's that, John T? 95?
Yeah.
He's up, but not himself. I'm talking about the group.
Yeah, we're talking about his faction.
Again.
So, with respect to his faction, when we started looking at the Wuhan Virology Institute, and I started doing shows on the virus for my food chain radio show, I looked at the organizational structure of the Wuhan Virology Institute. Guess who the big boss is?
Sure.
It's Jiang Zemin.
Yeah.
But it's run by his family, his sons and grandsons.
Well, I know we're right at the end of the hour here, but I have a devil's advocate question. Isn't our own government trying to wreck our economy?
It would appear so, yes.
I was trying not to go there, but
It would appear so, yes.
Yeah.
And that concludes our first hour.
What's the phone number? Should we open up the phone number?
Sure, 479-1080 in the 831 area code. This is KSCO Santa Cruz. Stay with us. We'll be back for our second hour in about 6 minutes or so.
Weather forecast for tonight, mostly clear with north-northwest winds 6 to 11 miles per hour, becoming light west in the evening. Tomorrow, patchy fog between 4 and 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, otherwise sunny with light and variable winds becoming northwest 6 to 11 miles per hour tomorrow afternoon. There is a small craft advisory in effect through this evening, and the boaters forecast for today calls for northwest winds Actually, for tonight, northwest winds 20 to 25 knots with gusts up to 30 knots, wind waves 5 to 6 feet. And tomorrow, west winds 20 to 25 knots, gusts up to 35 knots, wind waves 5 to 6 feet again. Time now is 6 minutes after 3 p.m., and that means it's time for the second hour of China Watch Radio.
Is brought to you in part by Sushi Market Sprouts on 7th in Santa Cruz and Kaito in the Capitola Mall Food Court. Treat yourself to the finest Japanese cuisine you'll find anywhere with fresh sushi to go and delicious ramen dinners. Sushi Market Sprouts and Kaito. Yum! I have an important telephone number for you to remember. That telephone number is area code 831-479-1080. That phone number will get you onto our phone bank and eventually on the air with us. I'm Bill Graff, and we're back for the second hour of China Watch Radio. Michael, you want to set us up for the second hour?
Sure. And also aboard with us, we have Jaunty Collier calling in from the trees somewhere up in the mountains. Amy Howe is with us today in the studio. Always good to have Amy in the studio. Love that. David Welch is with us, and Susan Simon is still running the board, so we're in good hands all the way around. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before in the last hour we were talking about the factionalism that seems to be running Chinese politics and offering up a possible explanation for the madness that seems to be going on over there with respect to the economy. Why did China shut down its real estate industry with 30% of the GNP, 70% of the personal wealth? It's done. Why did China cancel its entrepreneurs? Out of there. And not only entrepreneurs, but anybody who is successful. Movie stars, movie starlets.
Jack Ma.
Why did China lock down its country with COVID-1?
Particularly its
zero
manufacturing sectors.
Everything.
Why did it undercut its high-tech companies that are traded on our stock exchanges?
What's going on? Nothing makes sense except if you see the factionalism. On one faction, you have the Jiang Zemin faction. They are the money people. They are the coastal elite. They are the West Coast, but on the East Coast of China, where you find people like Zuckerberg and all of those people.
The manufacturing giants.
The elite. They are the Jiang Zemin faction. The other faction belongs to Xi Jinping, who over the course of his career has taken care of a lot of politicians, of bureaucrats. And these bureaucrats are now his gang, as it were. So you have these two gangs. Which one do you think will win in November? And furthermore, which one do you want us to have to compete with into the future? The money guys or the political guys? Which gang would be best for us? 831-479-1080.
If I could also just take a moment to invite our audience to go to China Watch Radio. There's ChinaWatchRadio.com. There's several articles on this topic of factionalism in China there. The one that I read prior to the show was actually laying out a scenario where there's three groups. That it was Hu Jintao's group, which was in power after Deng had created this situation where there was a sort of a matrix system between the governing entities and the CCP. So they would sort of share power, keep each other in check. He tried to create a situation where no one individual would be making unilateral decisions. There would always be some kind of group that was making a decision. Hu Jintao inherited that, but then he shared power with Jiang Zemin's faction, the princelings, the rich folks, the elites. He shared power with them, and they would often even trade off putting people in a position of prominence within any particular organization. Xi's faction rose within Jiang's faction. Xi was a princeling and elite,
Right.
and he
One of the
created
Shanghai gang, yeah.
right, and he created his own little gang of friends, and one of the things that they've done is they've tried to dismantle that power sharing arrangement and those sort of matrix systems.
And how did they do that?
The what's it called? The something in flies anti-corruption campaign.
Yes, it's an anti-corruption campaign, which was what Mao Zedong did all the time. What is anti-corruption campaign? Well, it means if you're a corrupt bureaucrat, they're going to catch you. But wait, all of the bureaucrats are corrupt, because to become a successful member of the CCP, you are expected to take care of the person above you, which means you have to bribe them. So, therefore, everybody in the CCP is corrupt. So, when you want to get rid of somebody who is a political opposition, you just arrest them for corruption. And they're corrupt, of course, because everybody's corrupt.
I say we kill all the sparrows.
There you go. There you go.
So I have something maybe for different. What do you think China could be divided by two countries?
Kind of east-west?
Yeah. You know, the central, in the middle, the Xi Jinping peoples, and then Jiang Zemin peoples and coastal.
Well,
because they really are talking about people. They all say they wish it's going to happen.
Would Taiwan be part of that mix?
Yeah, Taiwan or Hong Kong, Shenzhen, all those. Then the other, just let them go. But not that easy. Also, we have the new province, and we have Tibet. So all kind of things. So it'd be like a Soviet Union.
Dividing it up would be a nightmare.
Yeah. I once wrote an article for the San Francisco Chronicle called "Will the North Rise Again?" And it was a story about Northern California and Southern Oregon seceding from their respective states and forming the state of Jefferson. And it's kind of like that. But don't think it's going to happen. I don't know.
But happened to Soviet Union.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah,
it did.
Right. Well, Soviet Union.
So, of course, Putin want to put it back. But this time, I don't think that nothing you can rewrite history or go back. Just can't go back. So 30 years, China developing to today, and the people already tasted. So they wanted to go back? It's not the,
So they tasted the chocolate.
Yes. They don't want anything else.
That was a great story.
Yeah.
Great story. So,
well, John T., what do you think? Do you think it's possible that both factions can survive and prosper in China?
No, I don't think there really is. I mean, so when you have a faction that's taking control the way that Xi is, I don't know if it's fair to say that you sort of still have this sort of both factions. It's not a power sharing arrangement anymore like it was. All of the positions of importance are stationed by Xi's compatriots. So you really have a one group that's essentially in power and is suppressing the other.
Is that kind of like the Democrats taking over the FBI?
Right, exactly. Well, our Congress has a bit of a weird habit of heavily favoring whichever party has one more vote, one more seat than the other. So we do have an issue with that sort of overcompensation for the group that's in control. But I think it's obviously much more severe. The more autocratic you become, the much more severe the effects of that sort of thing are.
And if you remember that Xi Jinping is a great fan of Mao Zedong, not of Deng Xiaoping, who was the consensus guy.
Yeah.
Mao Zedong was no consensus guy.
No.
Yeah. It's funny. John T. asked the question about, or he made a statement about the one faction controlling the other faction. And I thought to myself, but controlling the money or lack thereof.
They don't care about
See,
money.
you keep saying
So,
that, and
what-
I just, because I'm raised in the Western mindset, I just keep thinking everybody cares about money.
You know, for last so many years, they have this kind of fight, never stopped, right?
No.
But they coming to the conclusion, they all negotiate. They say we're in the same boat. So
I
everybody
understand what
wants.
you're
I'm
saying.
talking about the meeting. Before meeting, they always have that.
Yeah.
And at the end, they agree.
Right.
Still go on because
Yeah.
I don't
there
want.
you go. Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I'm talking about major factor is who control the military. Because for those dictator countries, always military. The end of a military
Well, the
regime.
military. Well,
is any political
Sure,
turmoil.
they're the enforcement.
Yeah, so that's why Jiang Zemin has no military background, So he got in the power. First thing is get military power.
But
So he promoted. What did he do? Is he
Yep.
retired, let people to
Go ahead.
retire. And those older people, they would follow Mao to the Long March or something like that. So they all gone because they don't have an education. So Jiang Zemin, so we have a new country and reform. We need the people educated. And so they promote lots of young peoples, generals, a lot. So replace lots of people. So he control the power.
Jiang Zemin did
Then Xi Jinping come out. I don't like those people because they don't listen to me. So he get those people. So I don't know because they keep it very secretly. I think Xi Jinping building up. So how much the military can listen to. But today's military in China, people, because most of one child per family, they don't want their kids to die.
Yeah.
And then the young people, they think differently. They not be a patriot. Why want to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
They want to do something and to make money.
Eat chocolate.
Eat chocolate, yeah.
I read.
So they thinking, they even had in the good position. I mean, general or some, the...
Amy, correct me if I'm
Different.
wrong. One side, the Xi Jinping side, controls the military, but the other faction controls a large portion of the police forces.
That's going to be my question. Yeah.
Well, there's the police that were developed specifically to clamp down on the Falun Gong folks. I think that's...
No,
I forget what it's called.
there is a political police force
Yes.
that's run by Xi Jinping. And their responsibility is to arrest corrupt bureaucrats, which means Xi Jinping's
Just about
enemies.
everybody. Yeah.
Xi Jinping's enemies.
in order to in control and people supporting you, you had to know who's your base, right? Right. So Cultural Revolution, Mao
Sounds familiar, doesn't it?
Yeah, this is always same. Principle never changing. Doesn't matter what the year is. But then Mao need a red guard because they know nothing. But they have an incentive. That time is a political incentive. It's not a financial incentive. Because when Mao wanna be patriot or loyal to the Mao, for revolution, those kind of things. So brainwash. But now you use that, nobody believe you.
And
Nobody.
Somebody earlier was talking
But the financial status and the base for Xi Jinping
I want a nice house and a Tesla.
will be will be the people from outside the countryside, the young people. They want to get rich.
Yeah, they
go
want
to
a
the
nice
city.
house and a
Right now,
Tesla.
they very poor. They live in Shanghai, and they had no place to live. And very poor. And those people have motivations. You can give them incentive. It says, "Hey, those rich people, they have lots of houses. Go ahead." So they will follow him. They probably very much grateful. They have an opportunity. Mm-hmm. So those people right now wear those white uniforms to go to people. Yeah, those peoples. Mm-hmm.
Who are those people in the white bubbles?
Yeah, they are most of the government worker.
Right.
Yeah, so
They're
they
party members.
member first. You reporting to the neighborhood committee.
Mm-hmm.
And then put the white uniform. You can do anything you want. Just
For
go
our
to
audience-
people's house, stealing all kind of bad things. Just recently.
What, John?
For our audience who may not know what we're talking about, with regards to all of the COVID restrictions, shutdowns, lockdowns, and quarantining, and just layers of abuse, killing of pets, et cetera, this is all being carried out by folks in essentially what looks like a cheap white hazmat suit and N95 mask, and they're called pejoratively the big whites. And we're talking about where do all those folks come from? There's some shocking video of just tens of thousands of these folks marching down the street to come and occupy various cities.
Have you seen videos of them dancing?
No,
really.
I really
They are also a bigger uniform, a big white. They call it's far worse than red guard. At least you see their true face. Those people you don't know who are they.
That's right. Good point.
But every oppressive government has to have, especially some of the political arms have to have an army, like the brown shirts in Germany in the 30s, the big white.
Well, in Star Wars, all the guards are white. They're wearing white suits, walking around, following Darth Vader.
Yeah.
So it appears as though Xi Jinping is just going to shut down the economy for through November. I mean, this could get really strange.
I mean, bearing in mind that they're talking about demonstrating significant GDP growth at the same time. So,
but
when you say shut down the economy, we might need to be a little more precise than that sort of very large-scale term.
Shut down the small business economy, I would suspect. Shut down the entrepreneurial economy.
Well, last week...
Again, has that not happened here as well? Haven't we seen absolute carnage with small businesses in the United States?
Have.
The traditional drivers. Well, right now we see $40 billion going to Raytheon. And folks can't get baby formula for their kids. So, we're seeing some of the same sort of effects. I don't know if it's the same policies. The policies might not be matching.
We should do a show called America Watch Radio.
Yes.
Well, I think it's very important for us to anything we say about China, we need to be able to turn around and look at ourselves.
One of the great things about studying Chinese for me back when was that I could look at China and see a culture that developed completely outside of us. And whenever I saw something that was true in China and true here, I thought, well, that must be true.
Common denominator is human behavior.
A common denominator of humanity. And so, and as we have been having this conversation, we talk about what's going on over there. We talk about the Red Guards and brainwashing the Red Guards. Yeah. And one of the pieces I saw across the counter this week about our education system is that we're doing the same thing to our children that they did to the Red Guards. We're using the same tactics and strategies for educating our children that Chairman Mao used to brainwash those Red Guards into denouncing their own parents.
Well, in fact, it was interesting. I saw a report yesterday of very effective use of TikTok to create social engineering among young people, especially among middle schoolers. There was a viral video that went around about transgender clothing that's going to be at Target. And it's going to have a secret name on it, and they're going to sell things like bras that press your chest in if you want to pretend you're a girl and you want to pretend to be a boy, and you can tell your mom it's a sports bra when she washes it. They had all kinds of these clothing that would actually, by appearance, change your gender that they're going to be selling, and they're all advertising this through TikTok, and it was really interesting how viral it went and how people were actually sharing, the transgender gender euphoria, point of view.
Here,
I think it's gender dysphoria.
Dysphoria. Yeah, dysphoria.
Even
that's right,
worse, I'm talking about you compare with the brainwashing and the Red Guard, stuff like that. Here is worse because that time we at least know your father is male and your mother is female. Yeah, really. And then you're a girl or you're a boy. We don't have that kind of confusing. Doesn't matter what the
you mean back in the day?
Back in the day, yeah. Even we were same color uniform, but they never say you're not girl.
Well, we had
you have or whatever. Here I don't know. I feel so sorry for the young generation. I just had a 6-month-old grandnephew just born. Mm-hmm. I was kind of sorry for him because I think the COVID lockdown. They grow up, they don't see the real people. And they can't play with the kids. What the psychological effect to those kids? So I went to visit her. They say I put a mask on. She immediately cried. He immediately cried. I took out he's laughing. He said, I want to see human face. I don't want to see everybody wear those black masks. So scary. Why? So those people that my grandnephew grew up to 8 years old had to choose. He want to be a boy or girl. Wow, I don't know. How do they can do that? I mean, for the kid, how can we can?
And why?
We are not the creator. I don't talk about religion, whatever you believe, a God, you could be creator. How can we can play that? Anything I don't talk about religion or politics. Yeah. You're against the nature, you will be punished. Look at China, the one-child policy. Right now, 30 years later, they've been punished.
They're being punished.
Severely. And no way can fix.
Yeah. Amy, building some of your points, it's interesting. Our recent Supreme Court nominee was asked, can you define a woman? She said, I can't, I'm not a biologist. And I thought, whoa, that's really interesting how, some of the programming that we look at China on this program, right? And the programming that they get from a point of view. And you just look at how.
The reason she couldn't define a man or a woman is because it would be politically incorrect to make that determination in order to get nominated to the Supreme Court.
Well, that's exactly right, Billy.
She could, in fact, identify what makes a man or a woman.
Oh, exactly.
We know that.
Wow. Exactly. But it's interesting. I just elevate that, building on Amy's comments, to show some of the nonsense that we have here in our own country. We point at China a lot on this program of some of the top nonsense we have.
Well, like I said, we should do America Watching Radio.
But I think these U.S. examples are important to our audience because it helps draw a correlation of what's occurring in China.
Sure, and and look, no matter how much somebody is put under the gun under a different kind of political regime, human nature is human nature.
That's right.
And we saw that and heard that in the video where the people were screaming out of the buildings because they're hungry.
That's right.
Yeah.
Hey, what do hyenas do when they're hungry? They scream.
Yeah.
This from Chairman Mao. People say that poverty is bad, but in fact, poverty is good. The poorer people are, the more revolutionary they are. It is dreadful to imagine a time when everyone will be rich. From a surplus of calories, people will have 2 heads and 4 legs. Chairman Mao.
Yeah, Chairman Mao said it, but I would be willing to say that I'd be willing to bet that if Chairman Mao was espousing that kind of nonsense among 1,000 people around him with no guards to guard him and make sure he was safe, and they were hungry, they would have taken care of Chairman Mao.
Well, maybe that's why.
I guarantee that's human nature.
Maybe that's why Xi Jinping is paranoid.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go.
So look at the history, what's happened after Mao died. So very shortly, his wife and the General 4, they arrested. So very quickly. So just boom, changing.
Yeah.
And Deng Xiaoping came in, developed a consensus form of government, opened up the economy, thinking, well, we're just going to do this for a little while. But what you said about the chocolate was so true. You give people a little taste of freedom.
Well, I read somewhere a long time ago when we were first starting this program that there was a motorcycle dealership, and I think it might have been in Shanghai, if I'm not mistaken. And people in Shanghai were willing to spend $100,000 American dollars for a Harley.
Yeah.
Harley Davidson motorcycle. Now, that's to a guy that looks, a guy that rides a motorcycle or a moped. That's the chocolate.
Yeah.
That's what he wants. He wants a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Hey, we do have phone call. We have a phone call. Dick in Santa Cruz has called in.
831-479-1080.
Dick, you're on China Watch Radio.
Hey, thanks for taking my call, guys. You are on fire, and I really appreciate what you're talking about. I will say that the question came up last week. I think I might have brought it up, if you remember. I said to Michael, I said, what are they doing over there? There's nobody dying from COVID, and they're welding the doors shut. Well, the rest of the world followed suit for 2 years, more or less, to some degree, but to a lesser degree. But what is behind all this? You guys are hitting around all the edges. I think I have my theories. My first theory would be they're somewhat aligning with maybe Western globalism. Now, if you look at, the ultimate conspiracy theory, right? Globalism. Well, behind globalism is the green energy, climate thing, okay? Now, the world right now wants to tax for that, and and all kinds of oppressive things they want to do. And in the end, they want to reduce world population. They want to reduce it a significant amount. And I would say, the China elite are just like our elite, like you guys were saying. Well, that's what we're doing in the United States. Well, and you're saying human nature is human nature. Well, it is. They're evil people. They're greedy people, and the less.
May I address the global elite that you just brought up, Dick? You brought up a very interesting point because it addresses the factionalism that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Recently, Mr. Globalist himself, George Soros, gave a speech to some very important organization of global elites. And he said that, hey, ho, ho, Xi Jinping has got to go. Now, why did he say that?
Okay.
Because Xi Jinping is shutting down globalism. He's closing the door on China. And indicative of the fact that he is a member of the Jiang Zemin factory. Yeah.
That might have just been a warning, Michael.
He was suggesting to the world elite that Xi Jinping has to go.
Yeah, it's a warning to Xi. Yeah. The reason I say that, I know where you're going with that, and I understand there's different versions of complete dominance, and you can't say that China doesn't want complete dominance. So, yeah, they're at odds, but why couldn't they join them? Look at what they did with COVID. They were joined at the hip with COVID, locking down the whole West, the whole East, the whole world. So it might be.
Well, where did COVID come from?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But
gee whiz.
Very good.
I'm saying that Mao was ready to lose 300 million people after World War II. He told Stalin that. So.
He lost a lot more than that. I think he lost pretty close to 100 million.
Yeah, they were talking about nuclear war.
Yeah.
They were talking about nuclear war, and he was ready to lose 300. Mao was. And what I'm saying is he is getting his people in line for maybe something terrible in the future, and they have to line up. And who knows? Maybe either he's joining forces a little more with George Soros, okay?
I find that hard to believe myself, actually, but
I don't think so. For one reason, George Soros is invested in
making money.
He's invested in Jiang Zemin's commercialization of the Wuhan Virology Institute. Mm-hmm. If you look at a investment layout of the Wuhan Virology Institute's commercial endeavors, you'll see that George Soros is invested there.
Sure, I agree. So
Dick, we're out of time. I got to take my break here on the bottom of the hour.
I didn't even make my point.
Well, make your point. We'll wait to take the break before you make your point, but make it now, okay?
Now, what you guys said, I'm repeating what you guys said. You said that people have natural inclinations such as greed and elitism and human nature, and they want, or the middle class wants to get ahead.
No, that's just Billy has that.
You don't believe that?
You don't
just
believe
Billy
in human
has
nature
that.
like And what I'm saying is possibly we have two strong different ideologies too. We're having a real trouble. Amy doesn't seem to have too much, and Chauncey and Michael. But I mean, we're having a hard time understanding what the Chinese are doing. Okay, well, they did it to the whole world, and now they're doing it again. So why are they doing it? Because it worked the first time, and also the world's at a new position here. What I'm saying is China might want to lose a lot of population along with George Soros and the eco-wackos out there. There'll be a lot more stuff for all the elitists to... And as far as money, you're right, Bill. There was a mayor, just a low-level CCP official. They busted him a few years ago. He had a room full of gold and silver, if you guys remember that.
I did.
That's just one CCP...
You know that there's a burglar ring in China that specializes in robbing the CCP officials.
Yeah.
Because they have money and it's all cash
And
or
it's all
gold, and it's all in their houses. Thank you for the call, Dick.
All right, well, let's go to our break, and we'll be back in just a moment. Satisfy your hunger with a fresh, prepared, twice-daily grab-and-go sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
SantaCruzSidekicks.com.
Eat, shop, play, stay, explore, and more.
Coffee meetings.
Cafe gatherings.
And happy hour. Locally.
And beyond.
SantaCruzSidekicks.com.
Do you have internet problems at your home or office? Etheric Networks Internet has been providing internet for over 12 years to the Central Coast. You do have an alternative. Etheric Networks is one of only a handful of internet service providers that signed the industry letter to the FCC supporting net neutrality and is dedicated to maintaining a secure, free, and open internet experience. Join the Etheric Network and experience our superior service. Our contracts are friendly and simple to understand, as opposed to the complexity you will find with the cable and phone companies. We offer predictable monthly pricing. We have local technical support that's available 7/24. Importantly, Etheric offers the same speed on upload as download. We offer a symmetric service. Traditional weakness of both phone and cable companies will often offer much slower uploads and downloads. Call 650-399-4200 or visit etheric.net online. That's ETHERIC.net. Don't forget to mention KSCO to receive your $239 discount on installation equipment. Happy surfing.
At Batteries Plus, we do more than fix phones and tablets. We help our neighbors power their lives. Visit Batteries Plus in-store, curbside, and online for fast and reliable phone and tablet repair. Learn more at batteriesplus.com.
Ed Robertson inviting you to join us for the next edition of TV Confidential, Sunday morning from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. here on KSCO AM 1080 in Santa Cruz. And as always, we'll take you behind the scenes of your favorite TV shows and introduce you to some of the people who helped create your favorite TV memories. That's TV Confidential every Sunday morning from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. on AM 1080 KSCO. Listen and be heard.
If you think things couldn't get any worse, think again. We're all now in completely uncharted territory, all of us, from the entire COVID-19 scenario to covert climate engineering operations in our skies to unfolding ecological collapse around the world. Converging catastrophes are closing in from countless directions. What cards will the controllers play next? Tune into the commercial-free, non-political Global Alert News Hour, Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. on KSCO 1080 AM. This is Dane Wigington from geoengineeringwatch.org.
Well, we're back on China Watch Radio. We got so involved in the discussion about the leadership. It's a fascinating discussion to me. It really is.
It's inside information about Xi Jinping that we can't tell anybody because...
Well, I'm just fascinated by the whole way the power structure is set up in China.
Well,
yeah. You know why they pick up him? Because he looks like the one able to control by Jiang Zemin. Because he looked like a dumb, not very smart. Also, also not very opinionated or outspoken or something. No, he's just opposite. So it's easy to control. So that's the reason. Otherwise, never will pick up.
So
him.
You're saying that Jiang Zemin picked him because he's a big oaf and easy to control, and I wonder.
I don't think he's that easy to control.
No. It's so underestimate. Jiang Zemin make a huge mistake, but too late.
Yeah.
And before Deng Xiaoping picked up Jiang Zemin because he know Jiang Zemin from Shanghai used to be. Right. Know the economy. Also Western educated in the school, engineering or whatever. Can speak some English or something perfect for reform. So picked him up, which was.
And he opened up. Jiang Zemin was very instrumental in opening things up and doing business.
True, yeah.
Can I ask a question? Because we've been talking about
center,
we've been talking about Xi Jinping. We've talked about Jiang Zemin. I said that wrong. And we've been talking about the various factions, the two factions. I would like to know who's in the wings, because if
that's a very good question.
Who's on on deck?
Because
so to speak.
if you look at Jiang Zemin's faction,
they're all old. No, they're second, third generation. They're young.
Yeah, their son or grandson. I'm talking about grandson because they're already 95 or 90.
So whereas Xi Jinping's people are all people that came up with him and are essentially his age, right?
Yeah.
So he has the old folks. Xi Jinping does, and Jiang Zemin's if you look at the video of the leadership, and you can always see Jiang Zemin because he looks just like they have to hold him up.
Yeah, he's really old.
Have to hold him up.
Yeah.
Okay, so but
like
who's
Joe
in the
Biden.
Who's in the wings, man?
Well,
because that look, if I was working for the CIA in the information division where they gather information, so they and then they brief everybody. That's what I'd be looking at. Who's on deck? Who's the batter up?
Yeah, I just read a piece about that yesterday with respect to Xi Jinping's faction, and the people that he has surrounded him with are pretty much all his age. They're that old.
Yeah.
So we're going to go with that. They have to find somebody younger, and who that is, who knows. But there were a lot of people in the Chinese Communist Party, so...
Yeah, some people you don't even know the name because, like the Jiang Zemin regime that time, he always behind one person called Zheng Qinghong. Actually, he was control everything. And his children now, they control everything with Jiang Zemin's children. And go to the grandson, right now is that generation now. It's not they're all 40 or something. Jiang Zemin probably 95.
Yeah, he's pretty old.
So his sons are all 70s, right? So the next generation, third generation, grandson.
50s.
So 50s, 40s, 50s.
That's who you see on
They're very awfully rich. Usually the owner of the bigger corporation. They own this, that, all kind of things.
Right. That's who you see on the leadership structure of the Wuhan Virology Institute. So those people. So who's going to take over? That's
a really good question.
I think we can see a pattern, though. Something that I found interesting is just to look at this situation where the Shanghai gang, they really kind of came into power after it was Party Secretary Zhao Jiang. He was advocating for talks with the Tienanmen Square protesters, which it turned out to be a no-no. And it was one of the Shanghai gang's folks, I think it was a mayor or something like that. He stepped in to orchestrate the whole tragic and violent murder of all of the protesters there. And that was when the Shanghai folks, Jiang Zemin's gang, kind of really came to prominence, and then they formed the 610 office to go and disappear and beat up and organ harvest the Falun Gong.
Yeah, and so
and now we have, if I could just finish my thought here, now we have them being replaced by Xi's new gang coming from within them, and their whole thing is the Tigers and Flies anti-corruption campaign, which is, I mean, it's just, do you see a pattern here? So you come into power by leveraging some kind of method of persecuting people. So anybody could be accused of being a Falun Gong member. That's a way to just...
Or a Christian, or a Buddhist, or
so that's a way of getting rid of your opposition. And likewise, Xi's new thing where anyone can be accused of corruption is the new modus operandi.
You're talking about the corruption. Mr. Olson just say everybody in China, everybody. Because of the system.
Yeah, because of the system. In order to rise to power, you have to be corrupt.
Yeah, absolute power, absolute corruption. That's it. And then, nobody was saying that. Here, I'm talking about right now, before I think, because we have free speech, so, they cannot be corrupt. Somebody will say something, report it. And now, I don't know. Nobody say anything.
Well, and if you do, who's going to pick it up and let everybody know you said it?
You know what the problem is now? I see this only because I used to, do news full time, and so did Michael Olson. He worked for, large networks. And the problem now is, to a large extent, is our news gathering institutions in the United States no longer do it the proper way. There are no checks and balances. There are no reporters who are then told by their editors, go get me another source, make sure you get this information correct. And now it's any blogger on the internet can put out anything they think is correct, and people will believe it.
I believe every one of them.
Yeah, sure you do.
Every one of them.
But see, without that check and balance, without that, the press watching, our government leaders.
And that's really the tragedy of the times.
That really is.
It's the tragedy of the times that when we don't have somebody watching for us.
Right.
We have somebody that's watching for them instead of us.
Or has their own their own greed in mind to try to feather their own nest by reporting some story with a certain slant.
For the profit,
Yeah. We have a phone caller, Alan in Santa Cruz.
479-1080.
Alan, you're on KSCO.
Oh, right on. Great show and great call from Dick. I'm like on the same page. I was thinking the same stuff the whole show, and Dick put it so beautifully. All I could kind of add to it is I definitely feel China seems to be in preparation for something much larger. And
what would that be?
Yeah, Alan, what is that? Because we kind of have the same sort of feeling ourselves, but we can't put our finger on what they're actually trying to do.
Well, it's scary, and I almost don't want to say it, but it kind of feels like military war related. That seems to be a common denominator. Now, it could be just Taiwan. They're preparing to invade Taiwan, or they have a much larger plan and possibly part of the Great Reset that looks like is definitely happening, as far as my opinion.
Well, with respect to that, do you think a way to have a great reset would be to collapse your economy? Do you think that would reset things?
Well, as far as the way they think, I think what they're trying to do is devaluate the currency.
Well, that's a good way of collapsing the economy is to destroy the dollar. That would work.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely a part of it. They're anticipating a monetary collapse of some sort, which ties into them holding back. They don't want to be left holding the bag. Why sell it, Why sell it for $1 when down the road they can sell it for 3 or 4 later?
Hey, do you think that's what's happening with baby food? Do you think somebody's sitting on a big, huge, giant warehouse filled with baby food? It's because they know that they can hold it off the market and sell it for 10 times more tomorrow?
Yes.
Hey, Alan, thanks for the call. We appreciate it.
Thanks for the call, Alan.
With regards to, since you asked the question, there ought to be certain things, I really believe this, there ought to be certain things that you just can't hoard or gouge people for. And one of them ought to be baby food.
Not just hold it for sell, resale, whatever. The people, they told the other state in China, the city, to support Shanghai, to helping them. So they all ship the food there. And where those food goes. So I saw so many videos, and they were just dump it on the street? Dump on the street. And then the rotten vegetables, fruits, everything, then meanwhile, people can't get out to get it because they go out.
Because they have the guards at the...
And then some people in the neighborhood committee, they put those food, then
Selling it?
Selling the price high. And to the store.
I was going to say, who are they selling it to? If
to the store.
Oh.
So they allow those stores, whatever they connected, those people, they're beneficial.
Packagers.
So they can open the store, and so they gather the food, and they gather the money, and then sell the people 5 times or whatever. So people want to eat, they had to do it,
And of course, the neighborhood committee gets rich, and they take some of their money and give it to their boss.
Yes. Then they get promoted.
So we're back to Billy's law about how you figure how things out, but follow the money.
They get promoted, so they get more power. They can control more people. Just go on and on and on. So that's the whole system.
Yeah.
Wow. There you go.
See, if I had a food chain program, then my law would be follow the money. Yours is, you have three food chain law, about food. But if I was doing a financial program, it be simple, follow the money. Well, even in this instance, the food's being delivered, nobody's picking it up, so
next week we have a guest who wrote a book about his people, who are the Uyghurs in China. So we're going to have a look inside the life of Uyghur families and see what that's going to be like. It's going to be very interesting.
Jack has called, and Jack wants actually to hear Jonty's point of view on a topic. Jack, you're on China Watch Radio.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. Great show today, guys, as always. Yeah, Jonty does a lot of good research. I'm curious, he hasn't had a chance to talk a lot today. I'd like to know what he makes of the lockdown, politically and economically. And I'll listen off the air. Thank you.
Thanks for calling.
Well, thanks, Jack. It's funny. I was, just as everybody was talking there, I was thinking about this video I saw recently out of actually, I'm not exactly sure where, out of China, but it's a video of one of the big white COVID lockdown police doing a coronavirus test, a PCR test on a crawfish. Basically, they're testing testing a crawdad for the coronavirus.
Everything.
So I mean, it's I kind of I sometimes have done this before in the show where I think about the effects of the psychological effects on a society and then relate them to the psychological effects on a child. You imagine that if you imagine the sort of group psychology, there's a word for it that Jung used that I can't think of right now. The overall life experience of the Chinese state and the people therein, they went through this extraordinary abuse as young children. This 40 to 100 million people that died. And
how?
Yeah, that's right. And the structure of that abuse was this horribly authoritarian abuse. But the younger generations hadn't really experienced that so much yet. There were 30, maybe 40-year-olds who didn't really have a taste of it. And darndest thing, it seems like that's come full circle again, and they're now moving back into trying to attain that same level of psychological effect, damage, such that these folks now are going to be permanently affected for the rest of their lives.
Chanti, I don't know, you see the video from China recently, a scholar, a professor, he was collecting lots of those antique books. Someone was the only one in the world. So those big Y coming to his place, asked him to give the key. He had to leave. So they sent him out and then just ruin everything. They do like a pest control. So they spread everything. And those books, I'm talking about antique book, you spread, that's it. End of the story. So everything, they not just throw away the food, everything for refrigerated, that's fine. But they just ruin all his antique collection. So before he leave, he said that if you do that, I'm going to jump in the building or something. But they just hold him up. So in talking about, remember me before Cultural Revolution, red guy coming, burn everything. And this is, they use the spread, pest control thing, ruin everything. All the Chinese culture, everything.
Well, we see folks, things become performative at a certain point in time, and that's part of cult indoctrination. So you don't believe in something because the science tells you it's true. You believe in something because you've been going through this performative ritual. And if you have allowed your pets to be killed, and if you've allowed yourself to be taken to quarantine camp, et cetera, if you have had folks come and destroy all of the food in your refrigerator because it might be infected, or things of this nature, you've done this great performative act. You have to sort of justify that to yourself psychologically. We see people here, going for a jog with a mask on, and we kind of roll our eyes and think, oh dear God, these poor folks have been damaged for life. Imagine what's happened to the people in mainland China as a result of this.
Let's go quickly to Marcia in Los Gatos. Marcia, welcome to China Watch Radio.
Thank you so much. We enjoy you every week, and I'd like to say, what about the elephant in the room? What's happened to Hong Kong? Won't we know a little bit more about what China's going to do if we look and see what's happened since Hong Kong fell?
I think Hong Kong just came out as having dropped down to one of the lowest levels of press freedom of any place in the world. I saw a report on that just recently.
We'll be waiting to hear next week.
All right. Well, thanks for the call. We appreciate the question.
Thanks, Billy.
And it's funny when she said, "What about Hong Kong?" I thought to myself, when they're gone.
Yeah, Hong Kong.
What a beautiful city.
Oh my
yes,
God.
Victoria Peak, the harbor, beautiful, probably the most beautiful harbor.
Chocolate-covered crickets.
Yeah.
I had chocolate-covered crickets there. It was not something I'm going to repeat anytime soon.
Hong Kong.
Well, that's our program. We're completely out of time. Flight 1080 is on the way. Remember, go to ChinaWatchRadio.com to find out more information about what we've been talking about and all of Janti's compilations of various topics. We appreciate your work. Thank you so much again for all the hard work this week, everybody. We appreciate the show. This is KSCO, Santa Cruz, Salinas, Monterey. Stick around. Flight 1080 is on the way.
再见.
再见.